Well, what's up again there, guys? Brian here at 3TR, and welcome to another awesome episode of my weekly Q&A show, Top People's Questions, episode 238. We got a much longer episode this time around with pretty mostly all gaming questions, which, you know, that works for me since I love gaming so much. But jumping right into them, the first question comes from an always regular of mine, going by the name of Ace Arcadia, and you want to know, are there any gaming franchises that I've never played that I wish I would have gotten into or played? In terms of games I wish, probably not. If there was a franchise that I was going to be into or get into, I would have done it years ago. But in terms of franchises that are out now, probably not. I mean, there's a couple of franchises I've tried to play that I can't quite get into. Something like Gears. I tried Gears. I couldn't understand the popularity of that. A couple of fighting games, some racing games like the Gran Turismo games, couldn't really get into those games. But no, if there's a franchise I'm going to be into, I'll get into it right then and there. I don't think I'm going to wait. So, yeah, I mean, I guess that's the best answer I can give you. The next question comes from Wong-Allied Wong. Hope I said that right because it's a little bit complicated. And he wants to know, Uncharted franchise versus The Last of Us. Okay, I'm gonna say this. The Last of Us is not just overrated. It is the most overrated video game in the history of video games. It falls into a category that I personally like to call the blacklist, in which these are games I openly hate. And The Last of Us fits that category, but probably not for the reason you may think. I don't hate The Last of Us because of The Last of Us. I mean, heck, I reviewed that game years ago, and I gave it, I think, a B+. I hate The Last of Us because, excuse my French, people will not stop talking about it. Say what you will about Final Fantasy VII, at least that game actually elevated the RPG franchise and is well deserving of its reputation. But The Last of Us is not even close to that. And the fact that it has been years and people are still talking about it like it is the greatest game of all time, and apparently it's getting this movie, which we haven't had any real major updates, and I hope it gets canceled, and I hope it bombs if it ever comes out. But just, The Last of Us is overrated. So comparing it to Uncharted is completely unfair because at least Uncharted took its time and actually has characters that I care about and like. And I think that the ending of it in Uncharted 4 was great and fantastic. Even though it's my second favorite entry in the franchise, and I still think that Uncharted 2 is the best game, the Uncharted franchise is a great franchise. So comparing 4 games to 1 is just unfair, especially when you are comparing it to the most overrated video game in the history of gaming, or at least in my opinion. So those are my thoughts between comparing Uncharted to The Last of Us. So back to normal. Where were we? Next question comes from Tanuki Player, and you want to know, what are my thoughts on Ed Boon wanting to make a horror-themed fighting game? Wow. Yeah, I heard rumors about that. I think it'd be actually quite interesting. I mean, it's already been proven that you can actually take horror characters and put them in fighting games. I mean, we've had Freddy Krueger in Mortal Kombat 9, we've had Jason Voorhees, we've had Alien, we've had the Predator, and we've had Leatherface, and they've all seemed to be pretty well balanced and feel like they could actually be part of the Mortal Kombat universe. So making a game where it's nothing but horror characters, I think could seriously work. I don't really think it'd be as interesting because how do you make a story around that? Because, you know, most fighting games have campaigns, and I think that NetherRealm Studios has done a phenomenal job with Mortal Kombat 9 and 10. So I think that's the only component I think would be a little bit of a challenge. I mean, maybe if they made it just like a small indie title type of game where, you know, it's just random horror characters like fighting each other just for the heck of it, then I think it could work. But if they could pull it off, that is something I actually wouldn't mind trying out. Definitely. Your next question comes from JDS4696. He wants to know, do you think that I will like Rise of the Tomb Raider more than 2013's Tomb Raider reboot? I think I may end up liking it a little bit more. I mean, I've already pre-ordered my copy. I will be sure to do a review for it and play it. I'm not sure if you guys want me to do a like a live stream or a Let's Play series of that, please let me know in the comments down below. But I absolutely loved the reboot. I was never really a Tomb Raider fan to begin with, but this made me a fan of this new franchise, or this new, I guess, chapter in the franchise. I think they did a phenomenal job, and I've even gone on record saying that I thought this game was actually, in many cases, better than the first two Uncharted games, and I think I said even many months back that I think that Rise of the Tomb Raider is going to be better than Uncharted 4. Whether or not that's going to hold, I don't know yet because the game's been out for a year. I could have played it on Xbox, but I decided not to because I thought the Xbox was just not a very good console. I didn't want to play a game I knew I was probably going to love on a console that I just could not get into. So I waited a whole year. I want to play it on the PlayStation 4. I'm finally going to get it next week. I'm pumped up to play it. And I think I actually will enjoy it more than the original. But that's not a bad thing. The next question comes from John Allen, or Allen, I should say, and he wants to know, would an Old Republic era Star Wars trilogy be better and more interesting than watching the new trilogy? Hell yes! Okay, let's get this fact straight. We're only one movie into this trilogy, and I'm already just disgusted by it. Let's get the facts straight. Rey is a bitch, Kylo Ren is a pussy, Finn is a dick. They've pretty much made the original cast completely irrelevant because Han Solo, Harrison Ford, clearly did not want to be in that movie because he only said for years, if anyone knows anything about Harrison Ford, he said himself he would only come back if he was allowed to kill his character, which he is dead now, spoiler alert. Carrie Fisher really didn't do much in the film anyway, and Mark Hamill probably had the easiest paycheck of all time, just kind of standing there like... And I don't even know if I want to watch Episode 8. Probably not, because as crabby of a character and as much of a pussy-ass bitch as Kylo Ren was, either Luke Skywalker is just a lousy teacher or Kylo Ren is just a really, really lousy student. Either way, nobody wins from this new trilogy, and I have no interest in watching it moving forward. So, watching a trilogy based off the Old Republic would absolutely get my support, as even the cinematic trailers that BioWare has released are far more entertaining than anything I saw in Episode 7. So, those are my thoughts. I would absolutely love to see a new trilogy focused around the Old Republic, without question. The next question comes from Arcane Magic 514. He wants to know, have I played the Ninja Gaiden games? If so, do I like them? Have I played them? Yes. I've played some of them. I think I played one on the PlayStation 3. I think I beat it, but I can't say I'm a real big fan of it. It just seems to be just a little bit over the top, at least for me. I like hack and slash games, but I kind of like when they're a little bit more grounded, which is kind of why I've not really been a big fan of of Bayonetta, even despite the fact that I think I own Bayonetta. Oh yeah, I do. I own Bayonetta, and I've never actually beaten it. I think I got to like maybe the second chapter and I stopped playing it. So I don't know. So I don't know. I'm just never. I mean, I've played it, just never been a big fan of it. The next question comes from Delano Taylor. Sorry if I butchered your name a little bit. You want to know, do I love how badass Virgil is in Devil May Cry 4 Special Edition? Absolutely. Virgil was a total badass. I just kind of wish they would go more into his story. I've had several people talk to me in my Versus Series matchup saying that Nero was Virgil's son, and there's just been no confirmation of it. If they had wanted to do it, they should have done it in that game. They should have had maybe a cutscene or maybe a whole story thing showing how Virgil was interested in a human woman, which seems really weird because anyone who knows Virgil knows he really doesn't like humans. So the fact that he would impregnate a human to have a son just seems out of character. But Capcom really dropped the ball. I really wish they had actually given him a real campaign instead of just doing what they did in Devil May Cry 3 Special Edition and just have him play through all of the standard missions just with Virgil. I thought that was just really cheap. But he was an absolute badass for the time we did see him. The next question comes from Sensko Scarpino, and you want to know, which is my favorite of the Super NES Final Fantasy games? Buddy, there's only one game anyone should love, and that's Final Fantasy VI, which I've gone on record saying that is probably not just the best Final Fantasy Super Nintendo game. You can make a serious argument that it is probably one of the best, if not the best, Super Nintendo game that came out during the 16-bit era. I mean, you could challenge it and put it in the debate against games like Super Mario World, or Star Fox, or let's see what else came out. I think Mario Kart. Yeah, you could definitely put it in the debate for that category. Absolutely. Your next question comes from Michael Byland, and you want to know which was the first Metal Gear Solid game I ever played. The first actually Metal Gear Solid game I ever actually played was actually Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty Subsistence. I was actually introduced to it when I was much younger in school, and my friend kind of recommended this game. I had never really been too much into stealth games, so that was my introduction to the franchise. And then I would move on to play Metal Gear Solid 3, Snake Eater, and as you know, that stands to this day as being my all-time favorite video game of all time. And then I actually went back and played the first Metal Gear Solid game, and then when Subsistence for Metal Gear Solid 3 came out, it actually came with the first two Metal Gear games, and that's how I got to play that. And then I got Metal Gear Solid 4 before I had PlayStation 3, and you know, over time, it eventually became my all-time favorite video game franchise of all time and still stands to this day. The next question comes from Matthew, Mr. M Keller, and this is going to be the last question of the episode. He wants to know, what is the most laughable thing that Superman has ever done in the comics? Laughable. Laughable. I don't know. I don't really think Superman's really that funny of a character. I guess maybe when he, sneezed and accidentally destroyed a galaxy, but it's not really that funny because if there were any intelligent life forms, then Superman just killed an entire race of species, aliens. Yeah, that's kind of a tough one. I don't really think Superman's ever really been that funny, at least not to me. At least he's been a pretty serious character. I mean, even when he's much more, lighter tone and much more comedic. I mean, if you go back to like the Christopher Reeves movies, I didn't even think that version of Superman was very funny. He was just kind of acting like a clown to kind of put up this act, and he did a pretty damn good job at it. And with that, those are all the questions that you have all sent me for this episode. I'd like to thank all of you guys for making this episode possible. If you guys have any more questions you'd like me to answer in next week's episode, episode 239, be sure to type them in the comments down below. But make sure you get them into me before next Wednesday, before I start filming this. And like always, thank you guys for watching. You're awesome, and I'll see you next time.